Am I the asshole for kicking my husband out of my children's father's funeral because of what he told the kids? My, F36, children's, M12 and F9, father, M43, passed away after a long struggle with cancer 3 weeks ago. His death was expected and the kids knew their dad was very sick, but still, I couldn't get them ready to handle this kind of event. Their mental and physical health is my one top priority, and I want them to grieve their dad properly. My current husband, M37, saw no need for the kids to attend the funeral after I said they were going with me. He said they're still young, but I said they had every right to be there for the final goodbye. He suggested he go with us then, and I wasn't sure, but I contacted my former in-laws and they said it was fine. My husband drove us to the funeral and kept making comments to the kids telling them how to behave, which was uncalled for. We got there and I brought the kids to stand near their grandparents, while my husband kept introducing himself to strangers, then went to stand next to the kids. I was standing from a distance but could hear the kids crying. I then started hearing my husband telling them to quiet down repeatedly. Not gonna lie, I felt bothered, wishing he'd stop. While the kids were crying he loudly said, "Stop crying. Really, there's no need for this. It's not like he can hear you," and the kids just started sobbing at this point. I was stunned. I looked and saw my in-laws staring at me. I felt horrible. I walked up to him and whispered I needed a minute with him. I made sure we were away and lost my temper asking what he was doing. He said he was just trying to comfort the kids and help them get a hold of their emotions. I told him what he said was horrible and everyone heard it. He tried to argue that he was just trying to help, but I said he had no right to tell the kids how to grieve their father and demanded that he leaves the funeral, but he threw a fit and said I was overreacting. I insisted, then he left later. After the funeral the kids started avoiding me. They wanted to stay with their aunt and I went home by myself and found my husband there waiting with an angry look on his face. He picked an argument saying I shouldn't have kicked him out of the funeral after he came to support me and the kids, but I told him what he said made the kids refuse to even come home with me. He said the kids are using him as an outlet for their anger after he's been generous with his time and effort, and this is how we repay him? By making him out to be the bad guy? I refused to keep going, but he kept pushing for an apology for this blatant disrespect I showed him. For more details, my husband never had a good relationship with my children's father. I was confused when he said he wanted to come to the funeral, but then I thought he did it for the kids. Not the asshole. Show your kids they are your number one priority. This man is not nice. He does not deserve to be their stepfather. Get rid of him before you lose your kids forever. Not the asshole. And throw the whole husband out with the rest of the trash. Not the asshole, but I hope this was insanely out of character for him, or else you'd probably be better off without him. Either way, I can't imagine your children will ever forget or forgive what your husband did. Not the asshole. He was completely out of line, and it sounds like he was making a show of being supportive while resenting your children for grieving for their father. He was trying to make it all about him. Your children's paternal family must have felt so uncomfortable having this stranger shove himself forward at a funeral, and your poor children did not deserve to have this insensitive asshole complain about them crying. I assume that you've contacted a divorce attorney. Not the asshole. Your husband's behavior at the funeral was absolutely appalling. He wasn't helpful or comforting, he was harmful to everyone involved. I sat here with my jaw on the floor reading this. He should be ashamed of himself. Disgusting. Not the asshole. Your children refused to come home with you because this man was disrespectful and rude as they cried at their father's funeral. Your home needs to be a safe space for your children to grieve, and this disgusting man has shown that he is not safe to be around them. It's up to you, but I think you should make him leave your home so your children can return. Then, he goes to therapy to try and stop being such a horrendous human being, or you file for divorce. Protect your children. They just lost their father. Don't make them lose their mother because you choose to stay with someone so horrific. Edit. She's not the asshole because she did the right thing sending her husband away from the funeral, which was her question. Not the asshole. They are 9 and 12 years old and just lost their dad. Your husband is heartless. If their mental health is really your priority, then you should be getting a divorce. Anyone that can speak to grieving children like that needs therapy. Everyone sucks here. He is absolutely the asshole for his behavior, but you are essentially letting him get away with it. You need to be there for your kids. They only went with their aunt home because they knew he was at home. You really need to kick him out and support them. Right now you're letting them know that he is more important than them. I understand that this is a difficult situation for you, but you need to support your children in this. Am I the asshole for telling my niece her grandparents are homophobic? I, 28 am gay, and my parents disowned me because of it. I haven't spoken to them in 8 years. However, I'm still close with my sister, 34F, and her daughter, 10F. My sister still has a relationship with our parents. Every year, my parents host a big Christmas gathering. I'm never invited, but my sister and niece always go. A day or two after that, we do a smaller Christmas with just me, my sister, and my niece. At our smaller Christmas gathering, while my sister was in the other room, my niece asked why I never go to my parents' Christmas. I replied with the excuse I've used for years: I had to work. My niece said that my excuse didn't make sense because sometimes the big gathering happened on Christmas, when I definitely have the day off. She was getting upset and asked, "Do you not like to be with us?" If she hadn't said that, I probably wouldn't have told her. But I can't stand the idea that she would think I chose not to go to the Christmas. So, in a calm voice, I said, "Well, you know how I date boys instead of girls? Grandma and Grandpa don't like that, so they ask me not to go to Christmas." My niece was obviously upset by this. The next day, she called her grandparents and asked how dare they tell me not to come to Christmas. Apparently she was really harsh with them. Then, my parents called my sister and yelled at her for letting my niece around me. My sister confronted me and said I was an asshole for causing the family fight and for involving my niece in it. I feel really bad, and I really didn't expect my niece to call them and cause a fight. So I wanted to know, am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Your sister is a coward. The reason why it is so easy for your family to exclude you is because there is no consequence on their end. You caused a family fight. That's rich. Your sister should be starting family fights every single day, if she cared the slightest about you. Good luck op and best wishes to you. Not the asshole. You were honest with your niece in an age-appropriate, non-confrontational way. The only reason it turned into a huge fight is because no one else had been honest with her before about the situation. Not the asshole. Your niece is 10 and was bound to find out. Your sister is a bit of asshole because she isn't angry at her homophobic parents but at you for telling the truth. You didn't start this drama. Your parents did, years ago. Not the asshole. You didn't involve your niece. She's the one who brought up the issue. It's not on you to go out of your way to maintain a lie that's clearly not holding up for her anymore. If your parents refuse to accept that trying to pretend gay people don't exist isn't a viable strategy for maintaining family harmony, or your sister refuses to acknowledge there's only so far that trying to play both sides will go when one side is clearly in the wrong, that's on them. Not the asshole. If they didn't want their granddaughter to know that they're homophobic, they shouldn't be homophobic. Simple as that. Not the asshole. Your niece is a total badass. Not the asshole. The way you described it and responded was very much age-appropriate and reasonable and completely honest. The assholes are the homophobes and your sister for not being angry at them for losing their shit over being called out by a 10-year-old. Not the asshole. 10 is old enough to grasp what homophobia is. Your parents actually deserved her harshness. What did your sister want you to tell your niece as excuse? Would you have to lie? Am I the asshole for not being there for my wife when she had a miscarriage? By the title, it might sound bad. But hear me out. A few months ago, my wife, 29F, and I, 31M, found out she was pregnant. Around a month later, we found out my mother was terribly ill and in the hospital in Morocco. We decided to take the airplane to Morocco while the borders were still open. 5 hours before the flight, my wife found out she had a miscarriage. She was rushed to the hospital, but I was now stuck between staying with her and visiting my terribly sick mother. My wife begged me to stay, but I could not since the plane tickets were expensive and there was no guarantee my mother would be alive when she felt better. When I told her, she started sobbing and refused to talk to me. I felt bad the entire flight. When I arrived and hot picked up by my sister, she asked me where my wife was and I told her the truth, which she started yelling at me, telling me that I'm an asshole and she's a fool for being with someone like me. My brothers think I did the right thing. I've received millions of angry messages from my in-laws. My mother died 2 days after I arrived. A day after the funeral, I went back home. My wife refuses to talk to me, even though I've tried to apologize and explained that I just lost my mother. So, am I the asshole? Nah. This is the situation you can't win. Your wife is rightfully angry you weren't there, and the pain of losing the baby has put blinkers on her for the time being. She won't be able to see anything but her own loss at the moment. On the flip side, I couldn't get to see my dad before he died. Borders. and let me tell you, that's not something you get over. I expect your family wouldn't have let you hear the end of it if you'd missed those last days with your mom. I am so sorry for your losses. Both of them. I hope you can all move forward to a place where you can heal together. Nah. Two really bad tragedies at the same time, and you prioritized how you felt you needed to. It's natural she is feeling abandoned, especially since a miscarriage throws your emotions into overdrive with all the hormonal changes. She needed you and you left. Even though it was for good reason, she is not an asshole for feeling hurt by it. Give her time. She is grieving too. Nah. This is an impossible situation. Since the plane tickets were expensive. I hope you didn't actually tell your wife that. I'm sorry for your losses. I don't see any assholes here. Just a family in mourning. I hope she can come around and you guys can do it together. Nah. I'm sorry for your loss. This is perfect example of stuck between rock and hard place. Had you not went to your mum, you wouldn't have got to say goodbye, and would blame yourself. You didn't stay with wife and you are blaming yourself. There was no right or wrong decision here, this was just an impossible decision. Give your wife time and support. Nah. I'm so sorry for the loss of your mother and your child. A friend of mine died 5 years ago, only 6 weeks after being diagnosed with cancer. Her poor mother had to choose between being with her dying daughter 2 states away, or stay with her husband, who was also actively dying after a much longer cancer fight. Fuck cancer. Husband told her to go to her daughter, which is what she did. Husband and daughter died a day apart. Your wife had every right to want you with her and to be angry you chose your mother over her. But I think you made the only choice you could, assuming your wife was not in any medical danger when you left. Your wife was grieving, your mother was dying. No assholes here, but as someone who has recently had a miscarriage, my husband not being there would have absolutely broken me. I don't think you are a bad person, but I think you should be very gentle with your wife. Am I the asshole for calling the police on my brother? So for Christmas my mother got me and my wife a pride flag, and we hung it on the outside of our garage. It got stolen a few days ago, but since we have cameras we were able to figure out the culprit was my brother. This isn't a huge surprise. I came out at 12 and in the 32 years later, and he has been nothing but horrible to me because of that. I decided even so to call him up and ask him to return the flag. I told him that as long as he doesn't do it again we can forget about it. He refused and said some homophobic slurs, so I called the police and reported it. He is on probation so he could go back to jail now. He called me and cursed me out saying I'm sending him to jail for stealing a $10 flag. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole, he played a stupid game and won a stupid prize laughing my ass off. Only thing is maybe watch her back with other family members calling you petty. It might cause a bit of a stir if they're also homophobic. Not the asshole play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'd bet this type of disrespectful and hurtful behavior is what led to jail anyway. Some people might tell you to turn the other cheek, etc., and that's always an option of course, but consequences are, too. And that's what this is, a consequence. Not the asshole he committed a theft which is not on you. Calling the police is what you should have done. Unfortunately he's your brother and I can tell you're feeling guilty, and it's okay to feel guilty, it shows even throughout the past 32 years you still care for him. You're a good person to feel that guilt, but it's not your fault, he needs to grow up. Not the asshole he has no business coming and stealing a pride flag that was gifted to you by your mother. Not only is that theft, but he's also spewing homophobic slurs at you. He could have avoided this situation by 1. Not stealing your flag in the first place, and 2. By apologizing and returning the flag. He did neither. Edit. Thank you stranger for the silver. Not the asshole. His actions landed him in jail. You gave him an opportunity to do the right thing and he spewed hatred at you. He's where he belongs. Not the asshole. You offered him a way to not get in trouble. You offered to just have him return it. He spouted bigoted nonsense at you. He knew he was on parole, but his hatred was way more important than his freedom. He fucked around, he found out. Not the asshole. I'd almost be tempted to question the truth of this one because someone on probation doing a completely unnecessary crime is odd. But we do live in a strange world right now and strange things seem to happen pretty regularly. It's not just theft, it's a hate crime followed by hate speech. Screw him, no sympathy for the devil here. Not the asshole. He stole and said homophobic slurs, bottom line. He's on probation for a reason, and that's probably because he did shitty things. He shouldn't be stealing if he's on probation in the first place.